Your big brother needs it more than you, my mother said, not even looking up from the bank documents spread across our kitchen table in Phoenix, Arizona. Daniela, you're smart enough to figure something else out. I stood there, frozen, staring at the papers that should have been mine. The Brightstone Academic Excellence Scholarship, $200,000 that I had earned through 4 years of relentless studying, perfect grades, and countless sleepless nights. The scholarship that was supposed to change my life. My name is Daniela Hayes, and I'm 19 years old. For as long as I can remember, I've been the invisible child in my family. While my older brother Austin got praise for mediocre grades and half-hearted efforts, I pushed myself to excel in everything. I graduated valedictorian, scored in the 99th percentile on standardized tests, and spent my weekends volunteering at the local animal shelter instead of partying like other teenagers. All of it was for this moment, the moment I would finally prove that I deserved recognition, that I was worth investing in. But as I watched my father, Gregory, slide the scholarship acceptance letter toward Austin, I realized that no amount of achievement would ever be enough in their eyes. "This isn't fair," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the sound of my heart breaking. "I earned this. I worked for 4 years." "Life isn't fair, sweetheart," my father interrupted, his tone dismissive. "Austin's already been accepted to Colorado State University. The timing is perfect. You can apply for financial aid like everyone else." Austin, 21 and sitting smugly at the table, finally spoke up. "Thanks, Mom and Dad. I promise I'll make the most of this opportunity." His voice carried a note of false gratitude that made my stomach turn. He hadn't opened a textbook voluntarily since middle school, yet here he was, about to benefit from my years of sacrifice. I looked around our modest living room, taking in the faded furniture and the stack of unpaid bills on the counter. My parents had always struggled financially, working multiple jobs just to keep us afloat. I understood their desperation, but I couldn't understand their logic. How could giving my scholarship to Austin possibly make sense when I was the one who had proven my academic worth? "You don't understand," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This scholarship was awarded specifically to me. You can't just transfer it to Austin." My mother finally looked up, her expression cold and calculating. "Actually, we can. Your father and I are still your legal guardians until you turn 21. We've already contacted the scholarship committee and explained that you've decided to take a gap year to help support the family. They've agreed to transfer the funds to Austin since he's also a qualified applicant from the same household." The room seemed to spin around me as the full scope of their betrayal became clear. Growing up in our small Phoenix home, I had always known that Austin was the favorite. It wasn't just the way my parents lit up when he walked into a room, or how they excused his failures while scrutinizing my every move. It was the fundamental difference in how they saw our futures. When Austin failed his sophomore year of high school, my parents hired an expensive tutor and made excuses to his teachers. When I struggled with advanced calculus during my junior year, they told me to figure it out myself because smart kids don't need help. When Austin got arrested for underage drinking at 17, they blamed his friends and grounded me for not being a better influence on your brother. When I won the regional science fair that same year, they skipped the ceremony because Austin had a basketball game. I learned early that love in our house was conditional and scarce, so I stopped asking for it and started earning it through achievements. I thought that if I could just be perfect enough, smart enough, successful enough, they would finally see my worth. The Brightstone Academic Excellence Scholarship had been my holy grail. It was awarded annually to one outstanding student in Arizona who demonstrated not only academic excellence, but also community leadership and financial need. I had spent months crafting my application, writing and rewriting my personal essays, gathering recommendation letters from teachers who actually believed in me. When the acceptance letter arrived 3 weeks ago, I had felt a rush of pure joy unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Finally, I had something that was mine alone. Something that proved my worth in a way that couldn't be dismissed or overlooked. I should have known it was too good to last. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked, my voice hollow with disbelief. My father shuffled the papers uncomfortably. "We only decided after Austin got his acceptance letter from Colorado State. He needs the scholarship to attend, Daniela. You're young. You have time to figure out other options." "Other options?" I laughed bitterly. "Do you have any idea what I sacrificed for this? While Austin was out partying and failing classes, I was studying every single night. While he was sleeping in on weekends, I was volunteering and building my resume. This scholarship isn't just money. It's validation that all of that meant something." Austin leaned back in his chair, wearing that familiar smirk that had infuriated me since childhood. "Come on, Danny. Don't be such a drama queen. It's not like you won't be able to go to college at all. You'll just have to work a little harder for it." The casual cruelty in his words hit me like a physical blow. This was the brother I had defended countless times, the person I had covered for when he stumbled home drunk, the family member I had tutored through his senior year of high school when he was failing 3 classes. But as I stood there, watching them divide up my future like it was a pizza, something cold and calculating settled in my chest. They thought they knew me. Thought I was the quiet, compliant daughter who would accept whatever scraps they threw my way. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. That night, I sat in my bedroom staring at my laptop screen, the scholarship committee's contact information glowing in front of me. My parents thought they had covered all their bases, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated me. I picked up my phone and dialed the scholarship office. "Brightstone Foundation. This is Patricia speaking." "Hello, this is Daniela Hayes. I'm calling about my scholarship award." "Oh yes, Daniela. Congratulations again. Though I have to say, we were surprised to receive the call from your parents about the transfer. It's quite unusual." My heart began to race. "Actually, that's why I'm calling. I never authorized any transfer, and I'm not taking a gap year. My parents acted without my knowledge or consent." There was a long pause. "I see. That's concerning. The transfer documents did seem somewhat irregular. Your parents claimed you were unable to call yourself due to a family emergency. What documents did they submit?" "They provided what appeared to be a signed letter from you requesting the transfer, along with your social security number and other personal information. But now that you mention it, the signature looked different from your original application." My hands began to shake as the full scope of their deception became clear. They hadn't just stolen my scholarship. They had committed fraud. "Patricia, I need you to know that I never signed anything. My parents forged my signature and used my personal information without permission. This is identity theft." "Oh my. This is a very serious situation, Daniela. We'll need to put an immediate hold on any fund transfers while we investigate. Can you come in tomorrow morning to file a formal complaint?" "Absolutely." After hanging up, I sat in the darkness of my room, my mind racing. My parents had committed multiple federal crimes: mail fraud, identity theft, and forgery. Part of me felt sick at the thought of what I was about to do, but a larger part felt a cold sense of justice settling over me. I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. I took photos of every document they had left on the kitchen table, including handwritten notes in my mother's handwriting that outlined their plan. I recorded voice memos detailing every conversation we'd had about the scholarship, including dates and specific quotes. Then I did something that would have been unthinkable to me just hours earlier. I researched the penalties for mail fraud and identity theft. What I found made my blood run cold and my resolve strengthen simultaneously. My parents were looking at potential federal charges that could result in years in prison and hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. They had gambled with my future, thinking I was too weak or too loyal to fight back. But as I saved the last document to my secure folder and prepared for what would come next, I realized they had awakened something in me that I didn't even know existed. They wanted to steal my future? Fine. I was about to show them exactly what the cost of that decision would be. The next morning, I sat across from Patricia Williams, the Brightstone Foundation's director, in her pristine office overlooking downtown Phoenix. She was a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes that had grown increasingly concerned as I explained the situation. "I've reviewed all the documentation your parents submitted," she said, spreading the papers across her desk. "And you're absolutely right. This is clearly fraudulent. The signature doesn't match, and several details in the supposed letter from you contradict information in your original application." I leaned forward, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. "What happens now?" "Well, we're immediately freezing any transfer of funds. But Daniela, this goes beyond our foundation. Your parents have committed serious federal crimes. I'm obligated to report this to the authorities." "I understand." Patricia studied my face carefully. "Are you prepared for what that means? Once we involve law enforcement, there's no going back. Your parents could face criminal charges." I thought about Austin's smug face the night before, about my mother's cold dismissal of my 4 years of sacrifice, about my father's casual cruelty in stealing my future. They made their choice when they decided to commit fraud. I'm just making sure there are consequences. 2 hours later, I walked out of the FBI's Phoenix field office after filing a formal complaint for mail fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud. Special Agent Jennifer Torres had taken my statement and seemed particularly interested in the handwritten notes my mother had left behind, notes that clearly outlined their premeditated plan to steal my scholarship. "Cases like this are taken very seriously," Agent Torres had told me. "The fact that they used your social security number and forged your signature elevates this to federal crimes. We'll be in touch within the next few days." When I returned home that afternoon, I found my parents and Austin celebrating in the living room. There were balloons and a cake that read, "Congratulations, Austin," in blue frosting. "There's our girl," my father called out cheerfully. "Come celebrate your brother's good fortune." I stood in the doorway, watching them laugh and enjoy their stolen victory. They had no idea that at that very moment, federal agents were reviewing security footage from the post office where they had mailed the fraudulent documents. "How was your day, sweetheart?" my mother asked, cutting another slice of cake. "Educational," I replied, accepting the plate she offered. I learned a lot about federal fraud statutes and identity theft penalties. Austin laughed, completely missing the warning in my tone. "God, Danny, you're such a nerd. Even when you're upset, you're reading legal stuff?" "Something like that." My father raised his coffee mug in a mock toast. To Austin's bright future at Colorado State, I raised my own glass of water. "To consequences," I said quietly. They all laughed, thinking I was making some philosophical joke about growing up. If only they knew. That evening, I received a call from Patricia at the foundation. "Daniela, I have some news. The FBI moved quickly on your case. Apparently, your parents left quite a paper trail. They've scheduled arrests for early next week." Arrests? Even though I had expected this, hearing it out loud made my heart race. Yes, mail fraud and identity theft are serious federal offenses. Given the amount of money involved and the premeditated nature of the fraud, they're not taking this lightly. I wanted to give you a heads up so you can prepare yourself. After hanging up, I sat in my room listening to the sounds of my family watching television downstairs. Austin was laughing at some comedy show, while my parents discussed his upcoming move to Colorado. They were so confident in their victory, so certain that they had successfully stolen my future and gotten away with it. In 3 days, everything they thought they knew about their quiet, compliant daughter would be shattered. In 3 days, they would learn that stealing from someone who had spent 4 years studying the law was a catastrophic mistake. I opened my laptop and began drafting my college application to Stanford University, the school I had dreamed of attending since I was 14, the school that was now financially possible thanks to the scholarship my parents would never touch. Monday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. My parents left for work at their usual times. My father to his job at Northrise Apparel, my mother to her position at Graymore Optics. Austin slept until noon, as was his custom. then spent the afternoon playing video games and texting his girlfriend about their upcoming college adventure. I went about my routine with careful precision, attending my part-time job at the local bookstore and picking up groceries for dinner. To anyone watching, I was the same dutiful daughter I had always been. Only I knew that federal agents were at that moment finalizing arrest warrants and coordinating with local law enforcement. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Agent Torres. "Arrest scheduled for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Wanted to give you advance notice. Are you prepared?" I typed back, "Yes, thank you." That evening I cooked my parents' favorite meal, grilled chicken with roasted vegetables and rice. It seemed fitting somehow, a last supper before their world imploded. As we sat around the dinner table, Austin dominated the conversation with his plans for college. "I'm thinking about pledging a fraternity," he said, mouth full of food. "Dad, didn't you say you were in one?" My father nodded proudly. "Best years of my life. You'll make connections that'll last forever, son." "What about you, Danny?" Austin asked, almost as an afterthought. "Have you figured out your backup plan yet?" I set down my fork carefully. "Actually, yes. I've submitted applications to several schools with full-ride academic scholarships. Stanford, Harvard, MIT, schools that recognize actual merit." My mother scoffed. "Don't get your hopes up, sweetie. Those schools are extremely competitive. Maybe you should consider community college first." "Maybe," I said, taking another bite. "Though I have a feeling my circumstances are about to change dramatically." They laughed at what they thought was naive optimism. If only they knew. At 10 p.m., I helped my mother load the dishwasher while my father and Austin watched the news. "Daniela," she said quietly, "I hope you understand why we had to make this decision. Austin has struggled so much, and this scholarship could really turn his life around." I looked at her. Really looked at her. For what I knew would be the last time before everything changed. "I understand perfectly, Mom. You chose favoritism over fairness. You chose Austin's convenience over my dreams. You chose to steal rather than let me keep what I earned." She frowned, clearly not expecting such directness. "That's not how we see it." "I know. That's the problem." By 11 p.m., the house was quiet. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing that in 7 hours, my family's life would explode. Part of me felt guilty, but a larger part felt a cold satisfaction. They had taught me that actions have consequences. Tomorrow they would learn that lesson themselves. I woke at 5:45 a.m. to the sound of car doors slamming outside. Through my bedroom window, I could see black SUVs parked in front of our house. My heart hammered as I heard heavy footsteps on our front porch. Then came the knock. Not a polite knock. A loud, authoritative pounding that echoed through the house like thunder. "Federal agents, open up!" I heard my parents' bedroom door fly open, heard my father's confused voice. "What the hell?" "FBI, we have warrants for the arrest of Gregory Hayes and Margaret Hayes." Austin's door slammed open. "What's going on?" he shouted. I got dressed quickly and opened my bedroom door just as my father reached the front door in his bathrobe. Through the peephole, he could see multiple agents in tactical gear. "This has to be a mistake," he whispered to my mother, who stood behind him clutching her robe. But as he opened the door and saw the arrest warrants, as the agents began reading him his rights, as my mother started screaming and Austin stood frozen in shock, I knew there was no mistake. Justice, it turned out, was incredibly punctual. "Gregory Hayes and Margaret Hayes, you're under arrest for mail fraud, wire fraud, and identity theft," Agent Torres announced as she stepped into our living room. Behind her, 4 other agents spread throughout the house with practiced efficiency. My father's face went completely white. "There's been some kind of mistake." "No mistake, sir. We have evidence that you fraudulently used your daughter's identity to redirect scholarship funds to your son. You have the right to remain silent." As Agent Torres continued reading their rights, I watched my parents' world crumble in real time. My mother collapsed onto the couch, sobbing hysterically, while my father stood frozen in disbelief. Austin ran down the stairs in his pajamas, his hair wild with sleep. "What's happening? Who are these people?" "Austin Hayes?" Agent Torres turned to him. "You're not under arrest, but we'll need to speak with you about your knowledge of the scholarship fraud." "Fraud?" Austin's voice cracked. "What fraud?" I stepped forward from the hallway where I had been watching. "The fraud our parents committed when they stole my scholarship and gave it to you." Every head in the room turned toward me. My parents' expressions shifted from confusion to horror as they realized what had happened. "Daniela," my mother whispered, "what did you do?" "I reported crimes to the authorities," I said calmly. "Identity theft, mail fraud, wire fraud, all federal offenses." My father's face twisted with rage. "You called the FBI on your own family?" "You stole my future from your own daughter," I replied, my voice steady as steel. "I simply made sure there were consequences." Agent Torres stepped between us. "Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Hayes, we need you to come with us now." As they led my parents away in handcuffs, I heard my mother screaming, "How could you do this to us? We're your family." I followed them outside, where neighbors had gathered on their lawns to watch the spectacle. News vans were already arriving. Apparently, federal fraud arrests in quiet Phoenix neighborhoods were newsworthy. "Daniela Hayes?" A reporter thrust a microphone toward me. "Can you comment on your parents' arrest?" I looked directly into the camera. "Merit should be rewarded, not stolen. Actions have consequences. That's all." Austin grabbed my arm as I turned to go back inside. "Danny, you have to fix this. They're our parents." I pulled free of his grip. They stopped being my parents the moment they decided to steal from me. And Austin, the scholarship committee has been notified that the funds were obtained fraudulently. Colorado State will be informed that your full-ride scholarship is invalid. His face went pale. But I already quit my job. I already signed the housing contract. What am I supposed to do?" "Figure it out," I said, echoing the words our parents had thrown at me just days earlier. "You're smart enough, right?" As I walked back into the house, my phone was already ringing. Patricia from the Brightstone Foundation. "Daniela, I'm watching the news coverage. Are you all right?" "I'm perfect," I said, and for the first time in years, I meant it. "When will my scholarship funds be available?" "Immediately." "And Daniela?" "Stanford University called this morning. When they heard about your situation, they offered you a full academic scholarship with a personal endorsement from the dean. It seems your story has inspired a lot of people." I sank onto the couch, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in my fortunes. In the space of 1 week, I had gone from having my dreams stolen to having opportunities beyond my wildest imagination. Through the window, I could see Austin sitting on the front steps, his head in his hands, finally understanding that his free ride was over. My parents were gone, facing years in federal prison. And me? I was finally free to become everything I had always known I could be. The trial took place 6 months later in the federal district court in Phoenix. I sat in the front row of the gallery, watching as my parents were led into the courtroom in orange jumpsuits. They had aged dramatically during their time in federal custody. My father's hair had gone completely gray, and my mother looked frail and broken. The prosecutor laid out the case with methodical precision. The fraudulent signature on the scholarship transfer request, the forged identification documents, the deliberate use of my social security number without consent, the paper trail of emails between my parents discussing their plan to redirect Daniela's money to where it would do more good. When it came time for victim impact statements, I stood and walked to the podium. My parents looked at me with a mixture of hope and fear, perhaps thinking I would show mercy, ask for leniency. "Your Honor," I began, my voice clear and strong. "For 19 years, I believed that hard work and dedication would be rewarded in my family. I believed that earning the highest scholarship in the state through 4 years of sacrifice meant something. Instead, I learned that in my parents' eyes, my achievements were just resources to be redistributed to my brother. I looked directly at them. They didn't just steal money. They stole my trust, my faith in family, and nearly stole my future. Federal crimes deserve federal consequences. The judge nodded gravely. Thank you, Miss Hayes. My father tried to speak, his voice breaking. Daniela, sweetheart, You thought wrong, I interrupted. You thought I was weak enough to accept this. You were wrong about that too. When the judge read the sentences, 5 years in federal prison for my father, 3 years for my mother, plus restitution and fines, I felt no satisfaction, only a sense of completion. Justice had been served. As they were led away, my mother looked back at me one last time. The expression on her face was one of complete bewilderment, as if she still couldn't understand how her quiet, obedient daughter had brought down their entire world. 1 year later, I stood in Stanford University's Memorial Auditorium, delivering the keynote address to incoming freshmen. The irony wasn't lost on me. The girl whose parents had tried to steal her education was now speaking to hundreds of students about the value of perseverance and integrity. Sometimes the people closest to us will try to diminish our achievements, I told the audience. They'll tell us we don't deserve what we've earned, that someone else needs it more. But your accomplishments are yours. Your merit is yours. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. After the speech, a young woman approached me. Miss Hayes, I just wanted to thank you. My family tried to pressure me into giving up my scholarship to my cousin. Your story gave me the courage to stand up for myself. Stories like hers had become common over the past year. My case had sparked a national conversation about academic merit, family dynamics, and the importance of protecting students' educational rights. Several universities had changed their policies to prevent scholarship transfers, and new federal legislation was being drafted to close loopholes in identity theft protection. Meanwhile, Austin had spent the year working at a fast food restaurant, trying to save money for community college. He had reached out several times, asking if I could help him or put in a good word somewhere. I had politely declined each time. Some consequences I had learned were educational in themselves. As for my parents, they had tried to contact me through letters from prison. I had returned each one unopened. They had made their choice when they chose to steal from me. I had made mine when I chose to fight back. Standing on that Stanford stage, looking out at hundreds of bright young faces, I realized that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to face the consequences of their actions. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to demand justice. My parents served their full sentences in federal prison, emerging to find their reputations destroyed and their financial lives in ruins. The fraud conviction made them unemployable in their previous careers, and they were forced to declare bankruptcy to pay the restitution and legal fees. My father took a job as a night security guard, while my mother cleaned offices, both earning a fraction of their former salaries. Austin never made it to college, spending years working minimum wage jobs and struggling with the reality that his free ride had cost his family everything. The three of them rented a small apartment across town, their relationship fractured by blame and resentment over the choices that had led to their downfall. As I walked across the Stanford graduation stage 4 years later, diploma in hand, an acceptance letter to Harvard Law School in my bag, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The quiet, obedient daughter they had tried to silence had found her voice through seeking justice. Sometimes the people who try to steal your future end up giving you the strength to build something even better than you originally dreamed.